reports accurate?
I believe his name has appeared countless times in the documents
how
that
many
have
people were
been released.
assigned?
If I could finish, I'm going to read you the stats.
I just simply asked whether or not it was true that it was 1,000 folks who were assigned that task. Were those reports accurate?
There are more than 500 attorneys and reviewers. I cannot give you an exact number.
And I wanted to ask you about that also, because this is a different question that you're getting to now. There were 500 DOJ lawyers and others assigned the task of redacting the appropriate information, including identities of the Epstein victim survivors from the Epstein files prior to their release. 500, is that correct?
If I could have finished my answer, there were more than 500 attorneys and reviewers who assisted with the... They asked a question and they don't want an answer.
That answers my question, ma'am, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
From multiple
Bondi, would you
districts.
agree?
The
time belongs to the gentleman from Georgia.
General Bondi, would you agree that your 8 years of service as the state of Florida's Attorney General, the third largest state in the nation, served as an excellent preparation for your current role as Attorney General for the United States of America?
Not only that, I was a career prosecutor for 18 years.
And for
18 years.
And for 18 years,
He
you
asked a question and doesn't want an
prosecuted...
answer. This is theatrics.
Well, no, for 18 years, you prosecuted serious felony cases, including drug cases, correct?
Oh, I prosecuted homicides, I prosecuted capital cases, I prosecuted domestic violence cases, I prosecuted multiple cases, and that's why I feel for all of these victims. And did you ask Merrick Garland this when you were sitting before him, sir?
Prosecuted and
I answered that question earlier. I prosecuted multiple cases
when I was a prosecutor. Bottom line, you're an experienced and seasoned...
For 18 years.
Mr. Chairman, will you remind her of the rules? The time belongs to the member of the committee.
You are a seasoned and experienced prosecutor, correct?
I think we've established that.
Yes or no?
Does he want an answer or not?
I think he wants to say
I want a yes or no answer.
I think he wants to say
I want a yes or no answer, but I'll live with what you have already said. Let me ask you this question.
Clearly,
in the prosecution of you are acutely aware of how important it is to protect the identity of victims of...
I have addressed this multiple times. I think others were cutting me off when I was trying to.
Well, I just simply asked, are you aware of the fact that it's vitally important to protect the identity of as you prosecute their, the people they accuse of... Isn't that correct?
Excuse me. As we have said multiple times,
protection of the identity
of all victims
of the victims
are
is
protected.
so very
Who are
important.
protected under? Do you want me to answer or do you want to interrupt?
Well, because you're not answering the question. You do a Jekyll and Hyde kind of routine around here, and I just want you to answer my questions.
What does Jekyll and Hyde mean? Can you explain that?
Well, it means you're nice to the Republicans and you turn like Hyde on Democrats. But let me ask you this, ma'am. We have the Epstein victim survivors here today. Representative Jayapal asked a simple question. If you would be so kind and honorable as to turn around and face them and apologize to them for outing them. I mean, how many lives have been derailed because your department was either sloppy and incompetent or willfully trying to intimidate and punish these ladies for coming forward?
Which was it? The time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman.
Bondi responded firmly. explaining the scale of the effort and defending the team's work to protect victim identities while pushing for transparency. She highlighted her extensive background as a seasoned prosecutor, noting years spent handling serious cases involving violence and exploitation, which she said gave her deep insight into supporting those harmed. Yet Johnson kept returning to the core issue, asking whether the process had truly prioritized survivors or if mistakes had exposed them further. This hearing didn't happen in isolation. The Justice Department had rolled out millions of pages, images, and records from long-running investigations into Epstein's activities, aiming to meet requirements under transparency laws passed in recent years. Over 500 attorneys and reviewers contributed to the painstaking task of going through what officials described as a truckload of materials. Their goal was to declassify and share as much as possible while carefully removing details that could identify victims of exploitation. Bondi stressed during the session that such protections mattered deeply, especially given the sensitive nature of the cases involved. But almost as soon as batches became public, problems surfaced that fueled even more controversy. Reports quickly emerged about redaction errors that left some survivor names, personal information, and even images visible in the released files. Advocates and legal representatives for those affected expressed deep disappointment, pointing out how these slips could derail lives already impacted by past trauma. Some survivors and their attorneys said the department failed to catch basic references despite having lists to guide the process. Bondi later acknowledged in related discussions that errors occurred amid the enormous volume, but she maintained the overall commitment to accountability remained strong. The exchange with Johnson grew more intense as he questioned whether the department acted sloppily or with other motives, at one point urging Bondi to address the victims present directly and consider the human cost. She pushed back, reminding him of the rules and her focus on justice from her prosecutorial days. Adding layers to the story are the persistent rumors and speculations about what else the files might reveal. It's been widely reported that Trump's name showed up repeatedly in the documents, prompting questions about any special handling or scrubbing efforts. Officials have clarified that his mentions were among many high-profile references, but neutral observers note how such details feed into broader narratives about influence and selective transparency. Rumors suggest additional names of associates, potential co-conspirators, and connections continue to spark debate, with some claiming certain materials were delayed or withheld longer than expected for reasons tied to national security, privacy, or political sensitivity. Reports claim these files touch networks that extend far beyond Epstein himself, raising questions about who knew what and when. Of course, much remains unverified, and the full picture depends on future releases and ongoing reviews. Bondi's defense drew heavily from her record. She spoke about prosecuting homicides, capital cases, domestic violence matters, and cases involving sexual assault during her time in Florida and as a career prosecutor spanning 18 years. This experience, she argued, equipped her well for leading the Justice Department and navigating complex issues like the Epstein files. In the hearing, she emphasized feeling for the victims and working to ensure the process honored their need for protection while delivering transparency to the public. Democrats on the committee, however, challenged whether those efforts had succeeded, pointing to the visible errors and the emotional toll on survivors who attended the session. The back and forth highlighted a clear partisan divide, with accusations flying about theatrics versus genuine oversight. Delving further, the controversies extend to how the releases were managed over time. Initial phases came out in early 2026, but critics noted delays beyond promised deadlines and incomplete sets that left millions of pages still under review. Some lawmakers raised concerns about surveillance of their own activities when accessing restricted files, adding another twist to the oversight battles. Survivors groups have continued voicing frustration, with attorneys arguing that more could have been done to prevent exposure of vulnerable individuals. On the other side, supporters of the process point to the sheer difficulty of handling such sensitive archives without any missteps, especially when balancing public demand for truth against legal and ethical obligations. This tension keeps the story alive, with calls for additional unredacted access under strict safeguards. What makes this case stand out is the way it reveals deeper challenges in pursuing justice for large-scale exploitation scandals. Epstein's network reportedly involved hundreds of victims, many underage at the time, and the files contain interviews, evidence, and communications that could illuminate not just the central figures, but enablers across different circles. While the releases have brought forward significant information, the errors and debates have eroded trust for some. Bondi and her team have positioned their work as a step toward lifting the veil that long covered these activities, contrasting with previous administrations' approaches. Yet ongoing hearings, subpoenas, and public pressure suggest the conversation is only beginning. Speculation about further names emerging keeps engagement high, as people wonder about the full scope of connections and whether true accountability will follow. Beyond the immediate hearing drama, broader implications touch on how government handles high-stakes transparency. Lawmakers from both parties have weighed in at times, with some praising the volume released while others demand faster, cleaner processes. The presence of survivors at the committee session added a human element that underscored the stakes. No one wants to see additional harm come to those who stepped forward. Bondi's responses reflected her commitment to prosecuting serious crimes in the past and applying that mindset now, but the criticisms focused on outcomes rather than intentions. As more details trickle out through court orders or additional reviews, the public gains a clearer, if complicated, view of events that shook society. Rumors about hidden elements or protected figures persist,